What's up, everybody? Welcome back to Last Principles. I'm your host, MA, and with me, I have a very good friend of mine. I haven't told her this yet, but I consider her my big sister in the former faith, I guess. The host of the Losing My Religion YouTube channel. We will affectionately refer to her as Double H today. I don't know if you caught that old WWF reference there, but Double H.
Yeah,
Good. I'm like, whew, I hope I'm not by myself on that one. Anyway, so Double H is, like I said, the host of the Losing My Religion YouTube channel. She has a segment called, I don't know why my mind is drawing a blank. She has a segment called ICOC Shenanigans. And I came across this channel, I want to say about 2 years ago. And up until then, like I said in one of my previous videos, I had never spoken about this at all. I would vent to my wife every now and then. I had another friend who left before I did, and he and I would chat every now and then. But other than that, I never talked about it. I never discussed it. Then here comes ICOC Shenanigans, and I'm like, this is everything that I've ever experienced and more. Every single thing that she talked about, I either went through it or I knew somebody else who did. I'm like, I can validate this. I can vouch for this. I can corroborate this. So I felt it was only right, not just because, you interviewed me, but I'm like, the person who got me to start opening up about all of this, I'm like, the first interview got to go to her. So yeah, I'm glad to have you on with me today.
and I am so happy to be on. Thank you. It is an honor. And I always appreciated your comments on my channel. And just, I'm really touched being considered, big sis. You are the same. I would have to say the same on my end. I feel the same way. I do feel like you're just a new friend that I've made. And let's do this. Let's go.
Let's go. All right. So I'm going to ask you to give me your, as my wife would call it, your ex-ICOC elevator speech. If you got on the elevator with somebody and you had to very quickly tell them your experience, what would you say to them?
Oh, geez.
I know it can't really be contained to a really short speech, but like if you really just had to like get it out really quickly, what would you tell somebody?
Okay. What I would say is, what makes this extra for me is it's always because of the whole cult part of it. It's always a little weird, when you're like, okay, I'm always thinking as a communicator, how do I communicate to this person who most likely has no in-depth knowledge about what a cult is, but I think what I say is I'm an ex-member of the ICOC, International Church of Christ. I was there for almost 12 years. And this church was an evangelical discipleship ministry, Bible-based cult. And I left, in 2006 and, never looked back.
Never looked back. It's funny, I hear you, not dance around, but kind of maneuver around the word cult. I feel like I run into that same thing myself. I know, big shout out to my man Aldo over at the Reclamation Project. I know,
shout out to Aldo.
Yes. Me and him hit it off really, really quick. Like every time I talk to him, I feel like I'm talking to one of my cousins in New York, basically. But like he'll a lot of times he'll ask people like, "Hey, would you call this a cult? Or what else would you call this?" Like that really hits home for me because for so long I just didn't, and I'm still kind of reluctant to call it that, because of the people I've left behind, and the people who I still hang out with and care about and talk to. Like I kind of don't want to condemn them. I also don't want to condemn my old self, give myself some grace there. But at the same time, it's like, if somebody were to say it, I'd be like, well, you're not wrong. You're not wrong.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah. And I think it's also you kind of, what's the word I'm looking for? You kind of incriminate yourself when you call it a cult too, because it's like, dang, I was in this cult.
Yeah.
I was a part of this. I let this happen. You know, we kind of shame ourselves or we guilt ourselves for letting it happen. But at the same time, it's like, it's not completely your fault. It ain't even mostly your fault, just some, because it's like all the stuff.
Right.
I mean, of course, we're going to go into all of it, but all the stuff that gets you in there, right? It's such a convoluted monster it is, you know.
Yeah, I wanted to touch on something you said was really good about how it's self-incriminating.
Yeah.
And that's why I frame things the way I do. And when you said elevator speech, that's why I was like, for this particular thing, you know, that's why, because the public understanding of what a cult is still got a long way to go.
Yeah.
And so it's very inflammatory. So it automatically comes across like self-incriminating. People kind of look at it, I think, as similar to maybe not exactly the same, but similar to when you break up with someone, you're like, oh yeah, my ex is a real jerk. And my ex is the worst person in the world. And they're like, oh, well.
Why did you date him in the first place?
Right. I think on an even stronger level with the cult thing, you're like, yeah, I was part of a cult. And the first thing someone's like, huh? Like, wait a minute. So what? Like, why were you part of that? And
hold up. Wait a minute.
So it's like, but at the same time, we've got this, it's a unique experience. We've got this unique thing going on. So at the same time, how I feel about it is, if I don't name it, part of the power is naming it.
Yeah.
You know, so I've never introduced myself, you know, and said, how do I say this? I think in terms of when you're sharing with people this thing, you have to be very intentional, and it has to be, you know, you have to decide, is someone worthy of hearing this? Is it safe for me to say this to them? How do, you know, because all of this has to be considered in this particular, you know, with cults. Like if you're an ex-cult member, that's why I think we bond, those of us who have this experience, because it's such a unique experience.
Yeah.
It's such a unique experience. Most people don't have to have those kind of, you know, internal dialogue and kind of thinking about all of these factors, because there is a judgment that comes with that word. It's inflammatory. People are it's very polarizing, I think.
Indeed. You know, maybe I should have said, instead of elevator speech, I should have said stuck in the elevator speech. Because you really don't have time to tell this whole story unless you on the elevator and all of a sudden, wait, is this elevator not moving? How long are we stuck in here? Hey, well, since we got time, I might as well. But
that's a better scenario.
My stuck in the elevator speech.
Stuck in the see, that's the type of that would come up, stuck in the elevator. But like, you know, the other version is, hey, I was in the cult. It's like, what? Wait a second.
Or maybe not stuck in the elevator speech, because depending on how that goes, you might scare the person who's on the elevator with you. It might end up being like that. There's that movie, I think it's called Devil. It came out 2000 something, like maybe towards 2010, maybe a little bit after. And it's a suspense horror type movie, but like it's for people stuck in an elevator. And
I remember that movie. That movie was crazy.
Yeah, I've only watched it once. I might have to go back in and check it out. But yeah, but going back to like naming the cult thing, or like the public idea of what a cult is, right? I think that's how they got me in the first place, because of course, you know, the movie Midsommar had not come out yet, right? But that's one of the things I think of when I think of cult. So Midsommar, the whole Jim Jones thing, all the whole David Koresh stuff, like that's the kind of stuff most people think of. You think of the movie, the Wicker Man, I think. You think of Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom, and like all the people with hum shiba, and like, and you take the guy's heart out, all that kind of stuff. That's the stuff most people think of when they think of cults, like sacrifices, people just doing all this weird stuff. And so when I'm studying the Bible, and I'm warned that people think this place is a cult, not by people on the outside. I'm warned by the people who are studying the Bible with me that, hey, just so you know, people think we're a cult. So my mind immediately goes to what I think a cult is supposed to be. And I'm like, this is nothing like that. Oh, then this must not be a cult, because they're warning me about it. And it doesn't sound like what I think a cult is. So And then I think I told you this before, but I looked up the definition of cult, and based off of what you find in the dictionary, yes, this church is a cult, but so is every other church. So is any church and religion could technically, if you fudge it the right way, could fall under the definition of a cult. So on my own volition, I must have been drinking a Kool-Aid hard. I'm carrying around a heavy ass dictionary in my book bag, so that way, just in case anybody accuses my group of being a cult, I can whip out the dictionary and be like, you called my group a cult. According to this, yeah, my group is a cult, but so is yours.
Wow.
And I did this on my own. That's how bad it was.
Yeah, man.
But yeah, so I think that just off of that, because I didn't really know what one was, then I was like, oh, well, this isn't one. Oh, I think the other thing is they would say, oh, people accuse us of being too loving. People accuse us of being too nice. And you know how that hit me? I no longer buy into the whole nice guys finish last or women only like nice guys. I no longer buy into that. But you're talking to somebody who I've been told I'm too nice before. I've been told by female friends of mine in those days. I was, in my late teens, early 20s. I've been told by female friends of mine, oh, girls don't like you because you're too nice. How am I supposed to respond to that? Like when somebody tells you, it's one thing to have that thought, oh, well, girls don't like me because I'm nice. It's one thing to have one tell you that's why they don't like you, because you're too nice. So that resonated with me, hearing people at the church be like, yeah, people think we're a cult because we're too nice and we're too loving. I'm like, what the heck is that? So that kind of helped reel me in too. They didn't know that about me, but little did they know that hit home. So that was like, oh, this ain't no cult. People supposed to be loving in church,
Oh, wow. Yeah. Yeah. That is, I feel you. I really do. Cause I think part of why I do videos is really just what you're talking about is you gotta unpack it.
Yeah.
Because this is how we got caught up. It wasn't someone said, hey, you want to join the cult? I was like, yeah.
Right. Nobody does that.
Where? Name the time and the place. It's like, no. It really was all of these factors that come into play for all of us. I mean, for me, the same with the cult thing, right? The media has really done a number on the collective consciousness of what cult is, because they're trying to get views and clicks and eyeballs. So everything they highlight about cults, they always zone in on the most fringe groups. You're on a compound in the middle of the jungle, mass suicides, drinking Kool-Aid, like you said, UFOs, stockpile of weapons, Waco, Texas, all of the really quote unquote out there, like extremists, because it's sensational. So they've sensationalized cults to the point where here we come like, oh yeah, but this is a cult too. It's like, what? Like, no,
no,
it's a church. And because it wasn't until I left that I began to educate myself on cults and begin to, I went into a deep dive, just trying to understand, because the internet was popping at that point. When we were in there, I mean, in the 90s, it was just starting, but it wasn't like it is, now, where everything's at your fingertips and there's all this information. But I began doing a deep dive on cults, and I came across, I don't know if you are familiar with the BITE model. The BITE? The BITE model. BITE?
Okay.
Yeah, it's I'll send you a link, but it's an ex-cult member who is a PhD. His name is Steve. It's just missing I can't remember his last name now, but Steve Hassan. And he's the only one I know of that has come up with an actual theoretical model of a cult and how to identify cults. So the BITE, BITE model is short for behavioral. The T stands for thought control. I think E stands for emotional. And I stands for information control.
Yeah.
So Yeah, so over the years, it's become a lot more, like he's done a lot of great work on this, and really it's helped me a lot to intellectualize it. So I think for anyone listening, you're struggling in the ex-cult, journey. The biggest thing for me that helped was intellectualizing it.
Yeah.
As well, because then I was able to look at it, and go, okay, this is not just me being stupid or me being, gullible or dumb, kicking myself. It's like, okay, these groups are like, it really goes into like his attributes. I began to look at these attributes when you talk about, and it's like, okay, the ICOC fits all of those. And it becomes like what I've come up with my own definition of a cult, and I call it a group dynamic. So it's not an extremist thing. It is a group dynamic. So in my opinion, I believe that you were correct in saying, you look up the dictionary, that this could be your church. It could, I feel. I feel like a cult, you have to intentionally, deliberately not be a cult, because any group can go left. If it's because it's about power, it's about the control, and whether you're using the Bible or whether you're using some I don't know, some other doctrine or philosophy, or because there are all kinds of cults. So the more I began to study cults, I'm like, wait a minute, this isn't just a religious thing. Okay, there are business cults, there's psychology cults, there's new age cults, there's yoga cults, there's meditation cults, there's and so that's how I came up with my definition of that, was because I'm like, well, if there's all these types there's political cults too. So if all of these things are all cults, then it can't just be, religious. It can't just be this thing. It has to be more of a dynamic in the group than just, what the group believes.
Wow. As you talk about like redefining it and not just going off of like one standard definition of it, it reminds me of how I've had to wrestle with the definition of racism, because I used to just go straight off the dictionary definition, which, if you just go off of that, oh yeah, everybody can be racist. Now, I'm still careful with that, because I hate the phrase, oh, I'm Black, I can't be racist. I can be prejudiced and I can be discriminatory, but I can't be racist. I'm like, what? So those things are okay too?
Right.
But I do understand that we can't just go off of that definition, because that ignores the systemic aspect of it. And by that aspect, no, I can't be. But I also still won't say it, because if someone, let's just say if I do something discriminatory or prejudiced towards somebody who's not Black, and they say, hey man, why are you being racist? If they're saying that, I automatically assume they don't know the systemic definition of it. So if I just say I can't be racist, I can be discriminatory, I can be prejudiced, but I can't be racist, and I leave it at that, then all that's doing is fueling their fire to believe, oh, well, he thinks he got a pass to be hateful because he's Black. So I say that to say, not to go off in this whole huge tangent, but I say that to say you do have to understand you can't just go off of, like you said, these really small-minded definitions of it. You can't just go off of what's in the dictionary. You gotta have to, like, when you start expanding stuff, you start to see how big it is. You see it for the monster it really is. So whether we're talking about racism or cults, like it's such a big, more all-encompassing thing than we think it is. And when you don't realize that, that's how you get caught up in it, just like we did.
Yes. And so that's why, part of I was going to say the curse of this, I don't know if that's the positive framing of it, but I think but part of what we've been through is we have to educate people as we're explaining things to him a lot of times. Like part of it is being able to educating ourselves, and then educating people. I mean, at first, that's not what I wanted to do, believe it or not, but people just aren't going to know if I'm, they're not going to get it if I don't take a stand.
Right.
And say, listen, because I believe that this is bigger than just the ICOC in terms of when we're talking about cults and dynamics. And I think it's important to be specific about the ICOC, but I also think the bigger picture is we're talking about groupthink. Yeah. We're talking about manipulation. We're talking about and I think people are sensitive to it. I'm curious if you find this too, that I think people are triggered by the whole cult concept on a subconscious level, because they could be part of something that could be kind of culty at best. You know, it could have some kind of cult elements to it, right? It could be, you know, there are things such as, you know, that you have to, like, for example, I don't, you know, some people had got mad at me when I said this years ago, but, you know, I had a lot of friends that were in Greek organizations in college. And this is touchy. This is very touchy, right? Because, you know, all of the homies and stuff, you know, in their fraternities and sororities, it's like, don't talk about, you know, and it's like, I'm not coming for you. I'm just saying that as
some people take it too far.
Okay. I mean, do they not? I mean, is that not something that is socially acceptable but problematic? You know, that is a little bit questionable. I mean, you're talking to someone who almost did join a sorority. So before I got recruited into, you know, the ICOC freshman year, I was considering joining one, you know, and so I, you know, and it was those kind of culty vibes to me, and I had backed away from it. But then I got caught up in this because, you know, it's like, oh, Christian people. I thought, oh, it's a Christian church, campus students, you know. But I mean, I knew people personally in school that would join, you know, they would start that hazing process. And it was the same. To me, there were a lot of similar dynamics. Where, I mean, this one girl, we were real cool, and then she dropped off the face of the earth, and then come to find out she was pledging, and she was doing these really strange things like humiliation rituals. So I'm like, okay. I mean, I'm not saying it's a cult, but I am saying that there's some things that are socially accepted about that whole thing that, you know, is parallel to our experience.
Yeah, definitely. Like, for those of y'all who don't know what we're talking about as far as like the sororities, fraternities, and the hazing, go watch School Days. There's parts of that are in there. Y'all watch. The only other one that I'm pretty sure there are other ones that are out there. Let me see. I forget if there are any aspects of that show up in Stomp the Yard. Yeah, that's one. It's in there a little bit in Drumline, because I think Teddy, I think his name is the guy who Jason Weaver's character. He joins a fraternity, and like you just see him start acting weird and stuff, and like he disappears for a little while, and people be worried about him. And
I remember that.
Yeah, the girl he was interested in at some point was like, y'all gotta come. No, I think his name was Ernest. Yeah, I gotta help Ernest. I think he's in trouble. And she thought he got kidnapped. And nah, he's crossing. He's joining a fraternity. And that's the kind of stuff we're like, no, and for y'all listening, I do not think fraternities and sororities in and of themselves are cults. Please don't misunderstand that. I got a family full of Omegas and Deltas. Please believe I am not trying to shit on that right now. Please don't. I almost would have been an Omega. Like, I just decided fraternity life wasn't for me. But if I was to do anything, I'd have been an Omega, because I'm just like, that's all I know. I thought my favorite colors were purple and gold growing up, just because that's all my parents put me in. So yeah, I would have been that. So please believe I got all the love in the world for sororities and fraternities. We're just saying that there are aspects of that when people take it too freaking far, it can be cultish, you know?
Yeah.
So that same thing, you know, in my geek world, you know, there are some people, it's Star Wars fandom has become very toxic because people just be so dedicated to the source material. If you see somebody cosplay as a Star Wars character and they tweak this one little detail that, like, somebody shot their dog, you know, if you if this new Star Wars movie comes out and something isn't quite what they like, you know, they're tweeting at the directors and sending them death threats and stuff. That junk gets cultish, you know, like sports fandom. As big of a sports fan as I am, that can get cultish too. Like, any of this stuff can go there if you let it, which is why, as you said, it's so important to not so important. It's so much bigger than the ICOC.
Yeah,
all that stuff. I want to circle back real quick to you. I know you mentioned that you kind of have to be careful who you have these conversations with. You have to be careful who like, not everybody is ready for it. Not everybody's open to it. Not everybody is safe to say this stuff to. This is why, depending on who I'm telling it to, sometimes I cut out the ICOC portion of me and Naya's love story, because I can tell the story of how I met her without talking about the ICOC, but I can't talk about my leaving the ICOC without sharing how she and I got together, because that's the whole reason I'm not there, and what helped me open my eyes to what had been going on the whole time. So unless it's somebody I trust, unless I know it's somebody who is going to understand where I'm coming from, I leave that part out when I tell them, oh, hey, how'd you guys meet? Oh, well, this blah, 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 blah happened. I'll tell them the whole, my student trying to set us up on a blind date thing and all that kind of stuff. But I'll leave out the ICOC part.
I get it.
Yeah, because if somebody doesn't understand that part, I look like an F-boy when it comes to the part where I had, we had that whole dating limbo thing where we weren't really together, but we were together, but we weren't together, because I knew that if I made that move, then that would mean the end of me being at the ICOC. And until I came to grips with that, that's where I kept it. So yeah, if people don't understand that part, then I just look like a total jerk. I look like a total, I try not to curse too much on here, but I look like a total fuckboy if I tell that to the wrong person. They're just like, oh, so you really just strung her along? No, that's not what it was.
Right. Yeah. See, that's the kind of, that's funny you said F-boy. Like, it made me laugh because it was just funny. It was just funny thinking about it from that angle. It's like, as from a guy's angle, I wouldn't have, now that you mentioned it, say it that way, it's like, okay, I could see how, yeah, that could come across a certain way.
Yeah.
And the good thing about your story too, is how you guys met, is you can't cut it out. And you can normalize it. I was having a conversation with another ex-ICOC member, and I was talking to her about that, because she was having the same struggle of, she was sharing with people about being in the ICOC, and, people just were not, it just, the responses were very harmful.
Yeah.
And, but you can cut out, like you can even say, I mean, you guys, you met, you didn't meet in the church, but, yeah, it is, in other words, I don't know what I'm saying. I'm just saying, yeah, you could cut it out. So that's fortunately, because I wouldn't either. I would do the same thing.
Yeah. Yeah. It's definitely not something you just blurt out to people at all. When you mentioned how the media tends to share like only the most like extreme versions of cults. Somehow that reminded me of, I was watching this YouTube channel called Let's Get to the Root. And it's basically like,
I subscribe to them. Oh,
nice. Okay, you might have already seen this video then. So it's, those of y'all at home, it's kind of like a YouTube version of VH1's Where Are They Now?
Yeah.
So all the it's mainly hip hop and R&B. They might, every once in a while, they got some pop people in there too, but it's mainly hip hop and R&B. So I was watching the episode on Craig Mack. For those of y'all that don't know, Flavor in Your Ear, Bad Boy Records, Bad Boy, take that. All of that from back. Girl saying good old Craig Mack. But yeah, so apparently after he fell off, your boy joined the cult. It was a church where like it was on some compound, and people weren't allowed to go to the hospital. People weren't allowed to leave there. They had everybody in the organization had to live on the same grounds. And while the ICOC wasn't quite that extreme, it makes me think of the whole, we were quote unquote encouraged to live with other disciples. They wouldn't go so far as to say you can't go to a hospital, you can't go get medical help outside of this, but specific things they did, because we all know they don't handle mental health very well. They don't handle nothing like mental health, depression, any of that. Like none of that is you got people who really need to go see professional help, and folks in the ICOC would just say, oh, well, here's a scripture on blah, blah, blah. This is what you need to do. This is what you need to do, which really just reinforces the depression or the anxiety or whatever else it may be, because now you're like, dang, it's something really wrong with me. That's something I'm not doing right. Or if what is it, the common catch-all, or if this is happening in your life, then there's unrepentant sin in your life.
Right.
Imagine hearing that I have depression simply because there's some unrepentant sin. I have I have some kind of mental disorder simply because I haven't repented of whatever sin's going on.
They did that to me.
Wow.
You know, and it was a physical illness, but it was invisible. And so, yeah, they did that to me, but it's they're infamous for that.
You know, and thinking of Craig Mack again, it reminded me of how, I know you shared with me a story when we were talking before my interview that you did with me. You mentioned there was not you, but I think it's somebody you were discipling, and they were wanting to go to some concert, and somebody told you that you had to tell her not to go. But
yes.
She was like, nah, I'm not gonna do that to her. She gonna go. Do your thing, girl.
Yeah. Well, actually, as much as I hate to admit this, I did tell her not to go. Mm-hmm. But she was like, I'm doing it anyway. And so, you know, I wish if I could do it over again, I would have said to the women's leader who was the one pressuring me.
Yeah.
You know, I don't want to derail your point you're making, but I do want to be transparent, because I didn't do that in the moment because of the pressure is so intense.
Yeah.
You know, it was so crazy though. It was one of those moments that really anchored me in why I left. Mm-hmm. So, you know, because the mom, like, it was so extreme that, you know, but continue your point. I just wanted to you're come clean on that.
You're fine. But like, even with me getting that wrong, like I still get the feeling that you didn't want to tell her that. You didn't want to forbid her from going somewhere. Like, I didn't. That was completely pressure from the top, you know, like forbidding someone to go somewhere to a concert or something like that. I remember one sister when I was still at FAMU, I think the group Icons was hot back then. I think they only had one hit, if I can remember. Those of y'all in the listening, if y'all remember that group and y'all know them as more than a one hit wonder, I apologize. You know, please educate me. But as far as I know, or the edited version was get crunked up, but you know,
I don't remember that, but not to derail you.
Get crunked up. So, and it's funny, we had a Halloween party, and so there were some sisters there from visiting from Miami, and so the song came on, and of course it's the edited version, but I think they were saying get funked up, that like the sisters were saying get funked up. But it's still you say it fast enough, it still sounds like the real thing.
Yeah.
And that's just, all of that just reminds me of how weird and backwards it was with, you know, what came to us and doing secular things. Because like the one thing on one hand, I appreciated it, the fact that, you know, we're having actual parties for things. You know, we ain't do the whole Holy Wing trunk or treat mess that, you know, most of the like, you know, if you grow up Baptist, you're used to that, because you don't dress up, you don't go trick or treating. That's the devil's night, blah blah blah. It's a breath of fresh air to get to the ICOC, and we actually get to have a legit Halloween party. I can dress up. Ain't nobody going to accuse me of worshiping the devil. Cool. You know, you're having a New Year's Eve party, and I'm not on my knees for 2.5 hours praying. You know, and you know, I'm sorry, y'all. No diss to watch night service. I do understand the importance of it now. That said, I still have no interest in doing one because I did that for so long when I was a kid. I'm like, I'm not trying to like be at midnight. I'm actually over everything. I'm actually overdoing anything for New Year's Eve now. Even before we had kids, me and I was like, look, we finna be at home watching movies. We finna bring this new year in peace. Maybe even asleep. Maybe.
I'm with you.
Yeah. Anyway, but yeah, it was the breath of fresh air to, you know, doing what, you know, of course they would consider the world was doing. You know, hey, we're actually having fun on New Year's Eve. We're actually having fun on Valentine's Day, Halloween, whatever. So to not be, because, you know, I grew up for a long time believing that anything outside of gospel music was sin. You know, then we get to ICOC. Oh, we get to listen, as long as it's a clean version, we get to listen to everything. Cool. But then you also had those folks who were like, I don't listen to gospel. I don't listen to Christian music because they're hypocrites. Because, and simply because the artist was an ICOC. They swore off, not everybody, but I knew enough people who swore off any gospel and Christian music because they weren't disciples and therefore they were being hypocritical in singing about God.
I saw that too. That's real.
I'm like,
yeah, I knew people who said that too.
Like, come on, y'all don't realize how hypocritical you sounding right now.
But that's the indoctrination of the denomination study, because they tell you, only where we're correct. It's the same principle as the whole DPI, and you can only read certain Christian books. I mean, literally, we had to have books in the ministry I was in. It had to be sanctioned. So if the women's leader was reading, let me think of a popular book, or
was Captivating one of them?
I don't remember that one. Remember that book by Rick Warren, the Purpose-Driven Life?
Yes.
Like that kind of, we could read that because the women's leader, said she was reading it. So that meant it's okay.
Yeah. Yo, quick side story. I read The Purpose-Driven Life because there's a sister who I was crushing on for a couple of years and she ain't like me back. But everybody but her thought we made a good couple, right? And at this point now we remained friends, but there was a long time where I was like, if I was talking to her in my head, I'd be like, girl, why you don't like me? Why you can't just act right and like me? Like, for real. Of course, I would never say that out loud. I'm better than that. But at this point in our friendship, she knows I like her. And she asked, hey, would you read The Purpose-Driven Life with me? And I say yes. And I'm like, oh, am I wearing her down? Is this because that's the kind of thing that you do with somebody, at least in the ICOC, that you would do with somebody you were interested in or you were building with, quote unquote, right? Yeah. So there was a part of me, of course, nothing came out of it, but there was a part of me that was like, girl, you can't ask me to do that knowing I like you. No, that don't work. You can't be making it look like the door is a little ajar. Okay. Anyway,
why do you think she did? Like, what was the end game?
I have no idea. I mean, we were good friends, so maybe it really was. I will admit that maybe that might have probably me seeing what I wanted to see out of it. At the same time, I'm like, be careful with that, girl. Like, you can't do that with somebody who like you. Like, just at least that's what I would have done. If that's me and there's a female friend of mine who we're friends and I know she likes me and I don't like her, there's a certain line I'm not crossing. There's a certain distance I'm not going with that, if that makes sense. At least that's how I thought. Maybe I'm completely wrong on that. And if I am, I will correct that.
Well, keep in mind though, the culture of the ICOC allows that because
you know what? Yeah.
Think about it. It's very incestuous in the sense of this brother-sister dynamic where we're all brothers and sisters. And you shared a story in one of the groups online, that was really illustrates this, where you talked about how, I'm going to get some of this wrong, so correct me. Yeah, but you were at basically the girl who I think you had asked on a date or was supposed to go on a date with went steady, like right when you were going to ask her, like that night or something crazy like that. Like there was no indication, from what I understood, there was no indication on her end or the guy who asked her's end if that this was happening. She just seemed single and available.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Now, I would have been a whole lot more salty about that had I been interested in her. This was actually just going to be a date. And what ended up, I actually threw a monkey wrench in his plans by accident because, me being, I was trying to be proactive. I started asking, the main, okay, let me back up. The custom was, okay, so Double H, if I want to ask you, if we're both still in the ICOC and I want to ask you out, I'm going to ask you out today because we're recording this on a Sunday. I'm going to ask you out today for this upcoming Saturday, right? That's how I typically went, right? So I'm a recovering procrastinator. So I started asking sisters out a week and a half to 2 weeks ahead of time, just to kind of have it on my schedule. So like, just to be proactive about doing stuff. So I asked her out. So let's just say, instead of me asking you out today, I asked you out a few days ago, this past Wednesday. So what happened was that brother who ended up steady dating that sister, I think they're out of the ICOC now. And I think, they're definitely married. Like they've been married. One of my favorite couples, actually. But he had his roommate. His roommate was supposed to ask her out for that Saturday. So that way, he was going to ask her to be his girlfriend that Friday because So that way he wouldn't be messing up another brother's actual date, because his roommate wasn't ever intending on taking her out. He was just asking her out as a placeholder, if that makes sense.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right. So, but by me asking her out a week and a half early, not like a half week early, that I had beat him to it.
I see.
Yeah. So, but yeah, I mean, it's still a crazy situation. It's still crazy, but you know, it wasn't. Now, again, it would have been more crazier. I would have been mad actually had I actually been interested in the sister.
Yeah, that makes sense. It is crazy still to me.
Right.
You know, because the culture of it is, how do I say this? I guess that situation just screams to me how much the purity culture was like.
Yeah.
You know, why couldn't, if he, you know, if he's feeling her and she's feeling him, why can't everyone just be put, no, okay, these two are an item.
Right.
You know, they like each other. They don't have to date. But what they would do is they would pressure you even more when you're, quote unquote, building with someone specific, that whole interest in someone. They would pressure you to keep dating.
Right. You still still take other sisters out, still say yes to other brothers, but you're building with this person.
Yeah. And it's like, don't focus on them. You got to focus. So this is supposed to keep you from taking your focus off of the mission and God and focus on this person, all that kind of stuff. So then you have these kind of situations. I mean, one of the young women I interviewed earlier on, she had shared that situation where she had just gotten baptized, and the guy that asked her on a date literally went steady, like I think the next week or something, and it was very confusing to her because she didn't understand, like, wait a minute, why is he asking me on a date? It's all mixed up because the whole encouragement dating, and they're telling you that, like, they constantly would tell you the dating doesn't really mean anything romantically.
Right.
You know, so you're not supposed to take it. It's supposed to just be about encouragement and making friendships, building these friendships. That was what that's how they described it to me when I got baptized. Yeah. Was you're building friendships with brothers. You're just building friendships. This isn't about anything else. You know, and so you got that. And then that's how you end up with these weird situations, these awkward situations. Even if you didn't like her like that, if you did, that would have been messy. Yeah. But even not, it's like, okay, well, why couldn't you should have had been privy to the knowledge that, all right, well, she's already taken pretty much. This is what she's into, you know.
Now, I'm gonna tell you the details of these stories another time, because this would completely derail this interview and make it about me. But just to keep this short, I've actually had that exact thing happen to me though, where I did like the person. Right after I decided, you know what, I'm not going to limit myself to just people in Atlanta. I'm going to, because at first I was like, I'm not doing long distance. That's too much work. So as soon as I decided that I wasn't going to limit myself to that, within the next 2-3 years, at least 4 different sisters I end up having an interest in from out of town. And right after I got an interest in them, as soon as I start trying to build something, they start going steady with somebody else. Before I even get my toe in the door, snatched away from me. Okay, no, sorry, snatched away was the wrong word. I'm not trying to objectify here, but that's how I felt at the time. I'm like, dang. And then it happened 3 more times after that. I'm like, seriously? What? But yeah, the details of it, I'll give you another time, because there's some long, dramatic, juicy stories. But anyway, another thing that would confuse this whole thing as far as encouragement dating versus steady dating, if you're a brother, you were encouraged to treat every sister the same and not show favoritism. Yeah. How am I supposed to convince you that I like you if I'm supposed to treat you the same way I treat everybody else? Right. Because I'm supposed to be focusing on God. I'm supposed to be focusing on the God, on God in the ministry, aka I'm supposed to be bringing more people into the ICOC. I'm supposed to be padding the numbers for the organization. That's really what it was. But you know, I gotta focus on God. I gotta treat all the sisters the same, so none of them feel slighted, so none of them feel disencouraged or unencouraged. But yet I'm supposed to convince this one sister that I like her. How do I do that? Oh, well, you know, just be spiritual, and she'll notice you, blah, blah, blah. Really?
Now, on the flip side, for those sisters, we were told, while you're being told that to treat all sisters the same, we're being told not to focus on any particular brother. So especially if, we're interested in a brother, we're told something similar where you're actually encouraged to go on more dates now that you're interested in someone. And
Wow.
yeah, so some of the stuff you were describing that you'll get into more detail in the future, it's probably related to that too.
Yeah.
Because you're pushed, you're really literally, they're on you. They are on your case because they're like, okay, you can't get wrapped up in this one person. You're gonna sin.
They're watching you.
Yeah, I mean, I always felt watched. I felt
feel like
somebody's watching me. It's my DP.
We was about to go in two completely different directions. I was almost
Where are you going?
I was about to sing the Master P version. As much as I couldn't stand No Limit Records back then, that's the one that sticks out to me. Paranoid, I can't sleep, I'm in the street. That, man.
Now I went old school. I'm like,
yeah, like I know that version too, but that's the one that stuck with me. It's this nostalgia for being on the football team in high school. Like that's what everybody else wanted to listen to. I hated it back then, but if it came on now, I'm like, hey, that's my jam. But what's my jam back then? What's my jam?
Right.
Yo, so speaking of dating real quick, right? So you left and you were single when you left, right?
Yes.
Because I thought about it. I did not date prior to the ICOC, and my now wife, I half jokingly say this, she saved me from the ICOC. So I have no dating experience whatsoever outside of the ICOC. What has dating life been like for you post ICOC?
That is a very long conversation. The Cliff Notes,
okay,
is page 1, chapter 1, sentence 1 is hard.
Yeah.
I would even go to the extent to say traumatic.
Wow.
Because, you contextualizing it, right? It's like you're in this, like I joined the ICOC at 18 and I left, I was 30 years old. So I'm a 30-year-old single woman and, I'm out here now. I'm out and, dating in the church. One of the things that I'm almost always honest about, like, everyone, not everyone, but a lot of us, we have our good and our bad with the ICOC experience, right? Mostly bad, but there's some things there. And for me, dating was a positive experience for me. I enjoyed dating over my years there. And dating was very controlled. It was very, all of that. But at the same time, as a woman, you were very protected.
Yeah. Yeah. And
I really loved that and appreciated, like, there was that idea that, the brothers need to be protective of the sisters, that there has to, and the brothers were, well, I don't have any really, only like one or two situations, but for the most part, it was always protective. Brothers were always, chivalrous and respectful, and, and so, and I had a lot of fun. I mean, I did a lot of fun stuff, a lot of great guys. So leaving that and going into the quote unquote world now, it's a complete shock.
Yeah.
Because I was fully immersed into the ICOC. I was, 1,000% devoted. I wasn't seeing non-members on the side. So, like some people would have a little boyfriend or girlfriend or someone they're talking to outside the church. I didn't have any of that. So I didn't have any really familiarity with dating outside. And I just got a wake-up call that there's just a stark difference between dating in society and dating in the church. And it wasn't a good one. It definitely is not, like when you go on a date, I'll just be very, very, I'll just be plain about this. One of the things, you go on a date in the ICOC, it's a given that you don't have to have sex or you don't have to be pressured for sex.
Exactly.
Outside the church, it's the complete opposite. There are no boundaries. There are no rules that are, in the ICOC dating, there's all these rules, invisible rules, visible rules. There is none of that. It's just you. And you have to, it felt like a jungle. Like you're going out into this jungle and you have to you have to protect yourself and look out. And so in short, I mean, that was my experience. Just the safety I used to feel, it wasn't there anymore. And you're meeting all kinds of people now, and a lot of it is, expectations, for sex and expectations for this, and, people saying things like, there's all these rules in the church. You can't talk after this time on the phone.
Yeah.
You can't. And as much as I think that's toxic, it's like you have to adjust to that not being the case anymore.
Right.
Because one of the things that I used to hear is, well, we're all adults. Like someone would say something to me, I'd be on a dating app, right?
Uh-huh.
And you meet someone and they would say something that was, sexually too sexual, or I thought it was inappropriate. In the church, that flies. But a lot of times outside the church, it doesn't, and I'm not saying that you shouldn't have your boundaries. I'm just saying when you face it, I'm just saying, like, when I'm first encountering it, it's like, oh my goodness, like, wow, like, it's taking me off guard. Like, okay, because when I say, oh, that's not appropriate, you can't call the guy's DP or be like, brother, blah, blah, blah. It's like, no, a lot of the responses are, well, we grown. I mean, why are you acting like a baby? Like that kind of mentality, like you're immature, so it is very difficult transitioning into mainstream culture from purity culture.
Yeah. And that is our whole shared experience with that. Is such a bittersweet double-edged sword thing. Because I relate with you on a lot of that, like the protection of it all. Because like you said, there are some good things about it. Side note, shout out to my very first comment from someone who is actually in the ICOC still. She commented on my encouragement date video. And, I shared the good and the bad on it. I shared that, I enjoyed my dates. I shared that there were some benefits of it. But somehow or another, her takeaway from that was, oh, well, if you don't want to go on encouragement dates, just don't go on them. I'm like, so that's all you took from the video, right? Anyway, yes, the fact that, and even as a person who, before joining the ICOC, I wasn't quite sold on saving myself, but I wasn't quite comfortable with just, having sex with any old body, and I hadn't before I became a member of the ICOC. But yeah, I wasn't quite sold on saving myself. I at least was like, okay, if I do it, I'm gonna make sure I like her enough to co-parent with her, because I don't want to be having the crazy baby mama, baby daddy situation.
Right.
Yeah, I don't think I was comfortable with just having sex for any good reason. I think I even turned down also preparing for prom. There's a group of my guy friends that I wanted to kind of link up with, but I decided not to go with them because I found out that, the expectation was we all was going to try to get it that night. And I was just like, I don't know if I'm down with that. So I backed out of that group, Right. So I'm not trying to, paint myself as holier than thou before I came to the ICOC, but I say all that to say, I don't know how comfortable I would have been just with the expectation of sex every date I went on, So yeah, there was protection from that. There was no expectation to wine and dine. The whole $200 date thing comes up on Twitter 3 or 4 times a year, saying that that's the minimum amount to spend on a date. Like, I ain't had to worry about all of that even before that became a thing, So there's protection on our end, there's protection on y'all's end. Now, I do have to say, I don't think this is you. I'm just saying this in general. I did hate the whole, I do one little wrong thing and I'm gonna hear about it from my disciple the next day. I'm gonna have a gang of brothers ganging up on me, discipling me about something inappropriate I may not even know that I said the night before. And of course, that's not to, I feel like, there is big protection there from anything serious. Like if somebody did say something just blatantly sexual, or somebody harassed you or groped you or something, or worse, like that protection was there. But it also went overboard, because if you said something ever so slightly inappropriate, next thing you know, you're hearing about it from somebody who wasn't even on the date, and you never hear about it from the sister. This is going to be a video as well. I think it's Matthew 18. No, yeah, we're gonna dive into Matthew 18 on that one anyway. But other than that, like, I appreciate the protection. I appreciate the structure of it all. It's just from the jump, we ain't even trying to have sex. We ain't even trying to wind it down. We're just really getting to know each other. That part was great. I think if encouragement dating, if we could have had it without the obligation to ask and without the obligation to say no and without the fear of without the I gotta walk on eggshells because I might hear about it from my disciple the next day. If that stuff wasn't there, it actually was a perfect thing. Or or flip it, if you get dating, I'm gonna say in the real world, because you know how we both used to say in the world, but I feel like, and I'll probably, I'm not knocking the fact that you said the world, but like it's so ingrained in us saying the world. Really, outside of the ICOC is not the world. It's just outside the ICOC. In the real world, if we could get real world dating without the expectation of sex and with some little bit of boundaries, that'd be perfect too.
I absolutely 1,000% agree.
Yeah. Oh, another thing. Sorry to cut you off. That I feel like that actually trained the brothers in a really good way. One of my another friend of mine who I hope to have him on here pretty soon. We had dinner a few weeks back, and I was asking him the same question because he left after I did. It's funny, he actually left as a result of not as a result of me leaving, but seeing me leave kind of sparked some things for him. So I asked him the same question, like, how's dating life for you after the ICOC? And he was like, the bar is so low out here. Like the fact that the stuff that we got trained to do as brothers, like being chivalrous, opening the doors, making sure our cars was vacuumed out before the date, paying for the date, follow us, making sure we call, say, hey, we still good for this date on Saturday. The stuff that at this point we feel like is the bare minimum. Like, of course you're supposed to ask a week ahead of time or more. Of course you're supposed to pay for the date. Of course you're supposed to open the door. Of course you're supposed to go knock on her door and not text her from the car to say that I'm here. Of course you're supposed to, drive her back home. I'm a pause there because I think if you're out there in the real world at this point, some women be like, nah, don't pick me up, don't drop me off. I'm gonna meet you there. And rightfully so, because there's some crazy jokers out there. What was my thought in the first place? Oh yeah. So the bar is set so low, he's doing stuff that we just think is common knowledge, and that is oppressing the hell out of these girls. And he's like, really? Or the fact that he ain't want to hit it the first night, that's impressive to them. The fact that, he actually sounds emotionally mature. Mm-hmm. And he's like, this is all it takes for y'all to like be enamored with me. I think this is just standard issue. So I do give props to, because that's what I was trained on. Like my very first encouragement date, my boy who doubled with me, he's like, hey man, you gotta take your car to the car wash, you gotta get it washed, get it vacuumed out, do all this other kind of stuff. Like I really got schooled on that, and that has stuck with me to this day.
You are preaching. And these are such great conversations. I know, let's pass the plate, because that is such a good point. It is. The bar out here is low because the quality is low.
Yeah.
I mean, no shade on, quote unquote, mainstream society, but it's we were sheltered in a lot of ways, and everything you said, I mean, I co-sign that. I do think, like you said, I like how you had brought that other side to the talking to the guy's DP, because it's true. I didn't like that part. That part was very toxic.
Yeah,
because,
very much.
I feel for the brothers, because if I felt uncomfortable, the thing is, the times that I would say it directly to the guy, I would get discipled on it.
Yeah, you get discipled for bringing it straight to them. It shouldn't have been that way. And I have to wonder how many brothers went and told somebody else, be like, hey, this sister directly corrected me or directly told me how she felt. Like I would have welcomed that. If you did that to me, I'd be like, first of all, thank you for bringing it to me, and I'm sorry, I will do better.
Right? Yeah, if that's the culture. It was like, so if I felt uncomfortable about something, instead of it, so then it becomes this weird thing where, somebody, like you said, is funny, but it's true. It's like someone's not even there in the scenario. They didn't even go on the date, and they're telling you about something you did, and
you have no idea. You had no idea it was wrong in the first place. It wasn't nothing blatantly wrong. It was just this particular person felt some kind of way about it. Whereas you say this on a date with another sister, and it's fine.
Exactly. And you're coming out of purity culture though, and you're moving into the outside world where there is no purity. Like that is just a completely different animal. and you feel like a fish out of water. Like, wait a minute. And give more context to this. I grew up in a very religious house. I don't know if I shared that with you. I know we were talking offline before, and you were saying, before the last interview. So I also grew up very religious.
Yeah.
And very restricted, though, like extremely restricted. And so when I entered into 18, I had like one semester under my belt of, doing certain things or whatever. But I didn't have a lot of experience dating. I mean, I was 18. Like, I didn't have, I don't even really like the whole dating thing, like the way it is out here.
Yeah.
But because that's a whole other conversation, I guess. But it's kind of, and it's not. I mean, it goes into why, like, it's so hard, because I don't know. I love, like you said, if they could adopt some of the principles in the ICOC, as you so eloquently stated, it would be fine, but it's not that way. And then you come out here in these streets on the internet, it's crazy. People's ideas about relationships, and it really is like dating is like this whole dating thing is used as like entertainment. It's not really about having meaningful friendships, romantic relationships. A lot of this is really just about drama and dysfunction. And, I think people are just lying to themselves. A lot of people, they don't really want anything meaningful, but then they want to experience the fruits of meaningful relationships. So the dating is being interchangeably used with relationships. And it's like, it's just really messy. Yeah. And I just walked into all of that, like, where am I?
Like, it just hit you like a brick wall, like bam, like what this is what this is?
Yeah. And then you throw in, being in a cult and then having to rebuild my life, right?
Yeah.
That doesn't really, I mean, unfortunately, I had some other things going on that, I guess I'm trying to find the word, inhibited me in terms of certain things. Like I was also in college and in school when I was in the ICOC. A lot of that interrupted my education.
Yeah.
So I had to finish my education while other people my age outside were already done with school and they're already in a career, and so the ICOC leaves this gap in my past. Like, okay, that it's hard to explain. So when you're out here dating, the other part, here's something. So here's the other main thing when you leave and you start dating is it's very resume oriented. Like, people are what do you do? How much money, it's very surfacey, very superficial, where, let's be clear, I mean, it was superficial on some level in the ICOC, but in different terms.
Yeah.
It wasn't like
picking your poison, basically.
Yeah. The superficiality in the ICOC was more like how spiritual you are. I'm trying to think. It wasn't about, when you leave, it's about, your status and, what career you're in. And, like, a lot of that is what people are looking at, because they're looking at, how good are you going to look on my arm? How good are you going to enhance me? The what do you bring to the table thing? I never heard that till I left. What do you bring to the table? And I was like, what?
Where are we even at? How about we just get to know each other and we figure that out organically? Like, I see why that's such a jarring question for women, especially like when women get brought up on the traditional gender roles. Like, I see why it used to hit me the wrong way in the beginning when I first heard it, but now I get why women respond with, I am the table.
Right.
Like, it sounds arrogant, but when you really think about it, it's like, how dare you ask me that? Like, I've been brought up my whole life to cook, clean, do all this other kind of stuff and take care of the house. Like, what do you mean? What do I bring to the table? And this whole thing, like, being married now, every single day, whether anytime I get on social media, at least one time a day, I see something that makes me go, man, I'm glad I'm out the game already.
I'm telling you.
Out here in these streets, out here in these days. Do you remember when, not Steph Curry, his dad,
Del Curry?
Del Curry, yes. Del Curry. It makes me even feel older now because I think I got his trading card somewhere. Del Curry. And I just shaved off the gray hairs on my chin. It's just black right now, but they're there anyway. There was a thing about him and his wife getting divorced. And at the time that this tweet came out, it sounded like it was him initiating the divorce just off of he being tired of her. But it come out, kind of find out later, there was some messiness on her end. That we're like, oh, we get it. But at the time, it just sounded like him wanting out. And this one dude went on this long, funny rant like, bruh, you don't want to be out here. You think you want to be out here, but you don't want to be out here. Because out here wasn't the same way it was when the way out here was when you was last out here. You don't want to be out here.
Listen,
yeah,
I'm with. He's right. And as someone who is still out here, quote unquote,
yeah,
it's like it really is for the birds.
Yes, very much.
I think being happy wherever you're at in life, and that's something I can say. I think part of my development personally is being happy, with my life, not because that's the other part of the traditional thing in the ICOC and even, culturally, you're taught as a woman that your value is a man choosing you.
Right.
So if you're not chosen, that because then, on the internet and even off the internet now, it's like that whole, not only what do you bring to the table, but, oh, that's why you ain't married. That's why you don't have a man. You'll never get a man. That's, if you show strong opinions or if your career, you can't sleep with your degree at night and all this stuff. So all of that is that kind of shaming for women that if a man doesn't choose you, then you don't have any value. Your life is meaningless and purposeless. And that's got to go. And I've definitely, I left that behind, and it's like, but at the same time, there's tremendous value in finding a life partner as well. But people, so many people are just on one stream or another. And I think there's a lack of honesty and self-awareness. And it's just a war. It's just very much like this antagonistic environment that you step into it. You're like, wait a minute. I'm just trying to get to know people and, make some meaningful connections. And if it doesn't work out, then it doesn't. Yeah. But people are on some other stuff out here and it's crazy. It's crazy. And that's why people say, yeah, I'm glad, you're glad, I'm actually thought that about your situation too. I'm happy that you found someone wonderful. And they found you because, it is really challenging, and then throw in COVID, right? Throw in the changes just happened in the world. Yeah. It's not the same. So a lot of stuff is digital, and everyone is, they're resume dating. They're putting
resume dating. Wow. That's
like, I call it, that's my word. I call it resume dating. Like, what do you do? How much you make? What do you bring to the table? What can you do for me? Like transactional,
Yeah. And that's where it's all going wrong. That's it. It sounds like, and this is another reason why I resent that whole $200 date argument that comes up on Twitter seasonally, because, and of course, you always got those people who are like, oh, well, if you got a problem with that just means you broke. Like, no, my wife would look at me like I had three heads if I said tonight I got a babysitter and I'm taking you somewhere, and it ended up being close to or over $200. She would be like, bro, what is you doing? If I did that on our first date, we would not be married right now, you know? But not just it's not the money, it's the expectation. It's the fact that you're more worried about what I'm spending on you than getting to know me, trying to figure out if we're, if we just have a good conversation, have a good time. And if I end up spending that much money, that's one thing. But why are you looking at the receipt? Why are you looking at my wallet? I'm
gonna tell you the ugly truth is, and this is, I'm saying as a woman who's gotten this pressure from other women, and a lot of times your value, what other women say to other women is, he only spent that much on you. You ain't worth much. If he ain't spend that much on you, that's all he did for you. You went to McDonald's, or you went to the big thing I hear on the internet is, oh, he only took you for 2 for $20 at Applebee's. And I
don't do that because I don't like being restricted by the choices they give me. But that's another story. I'm that person. I'm that person. If we go out as a family, and everyone's like, "Oh well, we can save by getting these 2 for 2, blah 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 blah," and every freaking time the stuff on the menu be something I don't want. So now I done effed up the whole family's plans because I don't want to participate in the 2 for 20 or whatever. But yeah,
that happens.
You can't use coupons because a woman feel like she's being treated like she's cheap. First of all, I will use coupons and you won't even know I used them. I'm slick like that. You're not even gonna notice. Now, meanwhile, my wife would be like, "Oh, is this where we're going? Hey, I got coupons for that." Reason 1 million why reason 1 million why I put a ring on that ASAP. Okay. But then on the guys' end of it, it's like some of us messed it up because we spending $200-$300 on dates because we compensating because we not actually likable.
Okay.
Because the guys are trying to compensate for the fact that they ain't got no personality, or then of course they're trying to hit it, so they feel like if they spend X amount of money, then it's guaranteed. On the cheaper end of it, you got guys who are like, "I'm gonna take her on a coffee date," and I'm not knocking coffee dates because there are men and women alike who prefer them because of the lack of pressure. But there are some guys who do it because I need to see if she's worthy of me taking her on a real date. So I'm gonna just ask her out to coffee first to vet the process. How about you just call her and have a conversation with her first? How about that?
Because it's a game.
Yeah.
And they even have a term for it. Like they have all these so-called dating coaches. It's like this pimpology stuff. So it's like the game, it's the game. And so it's a game to people. Yeah. So those of us who are out here, the few of us that are actually authentic and we're actually seeking meaningful connection and we're just trying to show up as ourselves.
Yeah.
It's not really for those of us who are doing that.
Y'all just out here in the wilderness. That's what it is. That's what it sounds like.
I'm like, where is the play? I would love to make connections. I know that there are male counterparts that are also looking for that out there. It's just, and it's like, how do we find each other? And because for every woman going through it like myself, there's a guy on the other end going through it. Yeah. In his male end of it. And they're trying to they're trying to find the person who's trying to find the same thing. I don't know if you ever watched Walking Dead. They just reminded me of season 2. Rick and the crew they found Herschel's farm and they let him stay because his son got shot and he's trying to get healed up. He's like, "You don't know what it's like out there. You got to let us stay. We're hurt. My wife is pregnant. You can't send us back out there. To send us back out there is death." And that's what I'm thinking of right now as I hear all the foolishness that's out there in the real world, or in the single world, It's the zombie apocalypse out there. You can't go back. I don't want to go back. I tell my wife all the time, if God forbid something happened to you, because that's the only way you get rid of me. If something happened to you, you done set the bar too high. I might remain single because you actually apologize when you wrong. You actually tell me what you need instead of making me figure it out. Yeah, those are qualities that are hard to find because another thing, people are they're just a lack of self-awareness. People have not really, everything's operating superficially and everyone is looking for what they want to get out of this transaction, and not actually being a partner with someone. Yeah. But it just sounds like she's just a good person. Like she's someone that is just a good person. Like it's hard to find that. It's hard to find someone that, and for you, just recognizing that on your end, okay, I found, because what I also noticed, I've seen with guys too, is there's a lot of complaining and things about this whole thing about so-called modern women. Mm-hmm. And there's a woman in their life probably right now that is perfect for them. Mm-hmm. But they overlook it. Or they don't recognize, or she's amazing, but they have these ideas of, well, I got to be a player. I got to be, they're trying to live out some pimp fantasy or something that they see on TV or a rap song. Mm-hmm. The culture that you're raised in for men is very, so I think, but going back to the whole money thing. I mean, I've had it said to me, not from other women in the church. Again, that was a different experience, but a woman will down another woman if he didn't spend a lot of money on her and call her, "Oh, you cheap." And that's why he ain't spend. But on the flip side of it, that's how you get love bombed.
Yeah.
That's how so many women get in these relationships, because he comes out the gate doing all that stuff with, he's spending all this money, he's whining and dining you, he's doing this and that.
Because you don't know if it's sustainable or not.
Right. And we're living out fantasies too that we grew up with. Like everyone's being honest. Everyone's being dishonest with themselves.
Right.
You know, it's like, okay, I mean, you're a regular everyday person. Like, this is something that I'm being transparent with your audience. I had to come to terms with this for myself. Like, okay, I need to, it's not about standards, because the pushback is you have your standards, you know, the whole thing, well, their standards are too high. And it's like, you want me to low, and I'm not even talking about that. That's a given, you know, having standards. But when we start getting into, okay, you need to, you getting to know me, and, you know, and I have this expectation of X, Y, and Z, fine. I don't argue with people about their expectations, but I do think when I'm looking at the overall picture, this is how you see all these things where, oh yeah, they did this for me, they flew me out. You know, I know people had experiences like that. Oh yeah, they flew me out here or whatever. Number one, we're also detached from the economic situation at the times too, I think. But I can't say that they'll come for me, because they'll be like, oh, you're, you know, that's why you low rent, whatever. It's like, no, I'm just saying, I'm just realistic about the world we live in. It's like every man's not a millionaire. Right. And it's like, you know, we're in COVID, we're in, you know, your business can fall on hard times, your job, like there's just, it's life. Yeah. And we're so, and I think in our community particularly, there's just this detachment from reality. You know, you're trying to live like some Instagram rap video, you know, baller, you know, my worth is going to be determined by how much he spends on me, and because I'm worth it. And then, you know, the person that has that ability to do that, or can at least pretend to, you know, for the grifters and the, you know, scammers, then you get caught up, because you're conflating that with your value, and you're saying, oh, well, this person is really interested in me because he's dropping all this money. A lot of times the ones that have all that money and they're doing all that, they don't really care about you like that. No, you know, this is about, you know, that's nothing for them. And so I just don't think, one of the things I'm stepping into all this is what I'm saying. I'm stepping into this stuff, out of this, and I'm like, where am I? I'm in the wilderness. I don't understand, like, where are the people who are grounded and who are emotionally available and mature, and, you know, that I can have a real conversation with. Like, I had great times on days. There were a lot of great guys in the church. Like, you know, for me, I met a lot of great men, different types of men, different racial backgrounds, different, you know, economic backgrounds. Some guys did have more money. One of the things they used to encourage the brothers to do in the ICOC was to be creative, you know, because it was like, you don't have money. And one of the complaints was, and I understand that if you don't have money and you're telling them to take a sister out every Saturday, it's like, okay, how do I afford this? Yeah, get creative. Yeah. And I had some of the most creative dates. Like, there was some brothers, not all, but there were some brothers who really were creative. And we made great memories. Yeah. You know, it wasn't some fancy. In fact, I felt more comfortable, for me. This is just me. I'm not speaking for a lot of women. I have friends that, like, for them, nothing less than like a five-star restaurant or something. But on the first date or something, I'm one of those laid back chicks. Yeah, I like things low pressure. Same. You know, I'm trying to get to know you. I want to know if you're someone, you know, because some of the dates I went on in the church, certain brothers that had money, it was very, I don't know. I didn't really get to know them. I didn't feel it was his quality as certain things, because it was like this candlelight dinner, and part of it is like, there was one date I had, he took me to dinner at this restaurant, this really nice restaurant. And, but it was just him and me. And so the whole time I'm just thinking about my discipler. I'm just thinking about what they're going to say when they found out that we went on a date alone. So I think part of that was me just not feeling comfortable, because I know that we weren't supposed to be doing this,
Right.
It's like, okay, so but I mean, there was so many creative things that we did. I'm just chill like that. I like things laid back in the beginning, because let's just have fun and kick it. I mean, I didn't have a problem with the double dates or the group dates for the most part. Now, when you start to go steady and stuff.
Yeah, the control, the yellow tape, the telephone game, all that foolishness. Yep, that's the next video right there. That's where I'm gonna carry right on into that from here.
I'm waiting. Yeah, I'm here for it, because I want to. It definitely needs to be talked about.
Indeed.
That is. Now, if you were to ask me to compare dating, like going steady in the church, to a relationship outside the church, I would say there's just not the control mechanisms there.
Right.
But a lot of the issues are the same.
Yes.
Except for you just didn't have a disciplers and all that stuff. I mean, I don't know if you had I remember, because I went steady in the church, and I remember, we were discipled by a couple.
Right. Yeah. I think I had that. Actually, it's been so long, I don't even remember having a couple disciple us, but like this was like back in 2001 or something, so long ago, and it was such a short relationship anyway, like 4 or 5 months maybe. But yeah, like I knew that was a thing. And like you said, the dating in the real world, steady dating in the real world versus in the ICOC, only difference is you don't have the yellow tape of having the disciplers in there, so now you can actually tackle these issues head on, as opposed to going, circling around and you still having the same issues because y'all can't talk to each other.
Here's what I found though. Even then, in the real world, when you can actually do that and you do that, people don't have communication skills.
Yeah, there you go. They don't have communication skills. They don't have emotional intelligence, emotional maturity.
Nope.
All of that foolishness.
No. So even though those barriers are removed now, it's like we can have an adult conversation. People's idea of adult conversation is talking about sex.
Right, because they think XXX adult. They don't think actual mature adult.
Yes. And I'm coming into it like my idea of an adult conversation is having clear communication, clear boundaries, just being like, hey, so what's the deal? Yeah. Like let's talk about, okay, well, for example, you're saying, well, if you're looking for a commitment, something serious, adult conversation to me is like, listen, I'm not saying that you're the person. I'm just saying that this is my intention with getting to know people. Right. This is what it is. So, don't waste my time and I won't waste yours.
Exactly.
And what I found is that people, in general, don't tend to do well with that.
No,
they like to dance. They like to play kind of, there's like all these little games, like tease you a little bit here, but really talking about sex, really. And I'm like, well, okay, but that's how you get caught up in all these situations. And it's just very toxic to me. And those of us who, I feel for anyone who left the church single and you're trying to navigate, or you were married in the church and you got divorced and you're out here trying to navigate it. It's not easy.
No, not at all. So Double H, I'm gonna wrap it up here, and we definitely gonna circle back and do a part 2 of this, because I don't even know how deep in the iceberg we got. We might have cut out a chunk of it, but we ain't done with it. So
we just scraped it. We just scraped some shavings off the top.
Indeed. So tell everybody out there where they can find you at, where they can listen to you, all that good stuff. Plug yourself.
Plug myself. Well, as you explained in the beginning, I have a channel here on YouTube called Losing My Religion, and I'll share the link with you. I don't know, but you can plug in Losing My Religion or ICOC Shenanigans in the search engine bar, and you'll see a channel called Losing My Religion. And I also have a Facebook page too. I'm called Healing from Spiritual Abuse. And yeah, feel free to come over and check it out. I talk about my experience in the ICOC cult, but I also talk about just general life topics, especially relating to, spiritual abuse, cult abuse, and recovery and life after. So yeah, you're welcome to come over.
Cool. So Double H, thank you so much for spending time with me here, and for sharing, being so vulnerable with everybody out there. Just like with your channel, I'm pretty sure there are people out there who need to hear this, whether it's here, whether it's there, anybody else who's sharing their story. So thank you for all of that. Thank everybody out there who's listening to this. Thank you for chilling with us for however long this went. I think we went 1.5 hours-ish. But time flies when you're talking about your ex-cult experience. But thank y'all for hanging out with us. Be on the lookout for the next video. And again, feel free to leave your stories, comments, and everything in the comments there. And I will see y'all in the next video. Peace.
Okay, thanks for having me. Bye.